Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Today's show is called The Crossing Over Experience, and what occurs when the spirit leaves the body. You know, it's different. It depends on many things, and today we are very happy to have psychic and medium Tracey Lockwood joining us to talk about this particular topic. Tracey Lockwood is the executive director of the Universal Mind Center for Holistic Living here in Roanoke, Virginia. She is also the executive minister for the Mysterium of the Roanoke Valley, and is also a professional psychic medium throughout the rest of the week. I also want to point out that Tracey was also a bit of an activist for psychic mediums in the region, and she helped to lower the license fees here in Roanoke, Virginia as well. Anyway, without further ado, let me welcome my good friend, the psychic, the wonderful, celebrated medium, Tracey Lockwood. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, wonderful Bernard. I appreciate being able to be back with you on the air. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I am thrilled because, you know, I don't know if I have given you the message yet. I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm almost positive your appearance with me last year is probably the most popular show I've ever had in the history of doing this radio show. On YouTube, it's the highest number of views. It's been stolen by people. I mean, all these, like, you know, other psychic-y type things, like stole the video and uploaded it, and I had to do copyright claims on it. I've never had to do that with a radio show before. So I was like, well, thank you. Uh-huh. Apparently, it's a topic that people are very interested in.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I appreciate your bringing it to the forefront.
Yes. Well, it's my pleasure, and it's a pleasure to have you here today, Tracey. Why don't we start off today's show a little bit, bringing it back to who you are, where do you come from, how did you come to this place of doing what you do now? Because you're doing more than one thing. You do so much work, as well as being a medium. But tell us a little bit about the journey of becoming a medium in your life.
Well, it goes way back. The first memory that I have was in my crib, and I was looking up at a mobile that was hung over my crib, and I saw the faces of people peeping through the ethers, and I felt very comfortable with that. And I didn't really have the nomenclature to call it medium, myself a medium or a psychic, until much later. In my 20s, I was very active in a Pentecostal church. I taught Bible studies for 6 years, and learned a little bit about the gifts of the Spirit, and it was only recently that I started to make the connections between the gifts that are mentioned in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and what it is that I do. In that setting, I had done tongues and interpretation, and in modern terminology, tongues would be channeling in the indigenous language of the being, guide, or angel that you're speaking with. The Bible talks about it speaking in the tongues of men and angels. And interpretation of tongues is just interpreting those messages in the native language of the hearer or the listener. I was fortunate to have some experiences with the gift of prophecy also, which is mentioned there. And that horrible name that we have for it now is fortune telling. I really, really despise that name, fortune telling, but because it cheapens very much what it is. But the gift of prophecy is basically looking into the future and seeing what's going to happen for people. Sometimes there are alternative pathways. So people, if they're given a tip off, they have a choice how they're going to approach a situation. Other things are written for us. But the thing that really caught me most recently is the continuation. It's sort of like a continuum that starts with intuition and passes through psychic ability into mediumship. And intuition, I think everybody can relate to. Some people have kind of a jovial relationship with it, like, well, I've got it, but I don't listen to it. Other people are very aware that they're quite canny and have a tremendous sense of awareness. The point that it becomes psychic ability is when you start asking yourself, how did I know that? How did I know so-and-so was on the phone? How did I know to slow down and avoid the deer that I didn't see around the corner? How did I know that? And mediumship is the answer to those questions. It's the information that gives the deepest level of intuition, intuitive gift, and answers those questions by identifying the source of the information. And when we're intuitive, we kind of assume it's all about us. It's a gift we have. But as we go to psychic, we kind of wonder about that. And as we get into the depth of mediumship, we realize it's not us at all. It's information coming from the matrix, our higher self, the Akashic records, a particular guide, angel, ascended master, or a relative in spirit. And the gifts of the spirit in the Bible that equate to that, intuition is the gift of knowledge. We just know. Psychic ability is the gift of wisdom. We sound pretty smart when we say that, How do you that? I don't know, but I sounded good, And the gift of mediumship is the discerning of spirits, being able to identify them, classify them, and communicate with them in a way that's evidentiary to the listener. And so it really wasn't until 2010 when I attended what I later learned was the world's premier college of mediumship in the world, Arthur Findlay College of Psychic Science, that I was addressed as a medium. And I was kind of taken aback by that. I had gone over there to study with a medium that I've greatly respected. And she asked me to step on the platform, but she didn't use my name. She just said, would the next medium take the platform? And I was just struck. I was like, wow, I'm a medium? And since then, I have begun working as a medium. I am a psychic instructor. I teach group classes here in Roanoke on Monday nights, and I'm also a private tutor. I just recently have a student in Ottawa, Canada, and New River Valley, and I'm training a couple of mediums that are local in the surrounding area, given about a 2-hour radius, someone up in Connecticut. And yes, you're right, I do keep kind of busy. I had to laugh when you said what I do with the rest of my week. I am a minister. I do travel, and I do private, public, and group readings. And more recently, and this might be interesting particularly to you with your recent situation in your loss of ISIS, I've had more and more people come to me for animal communication too. And but anyway, I really enjoy teaching others how to access their gifts and working with them, seeing them unfold. I also do weddings and funerals and keep myself pretty busy.
Yes, you do. And you also stand up to the man.
I do. I do indeed.
You know, and I've got to say, because I was in the audience that day, and because it's such a strange, I don't want to say strange, not common topic, I thought that maybe the city council was going to be like, oh, who cares about mediums or psychics or whatever, and you actually got them to pay attention. So I was like, wow.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I was able, they were kind enough to let me speak with them individually before that. And I did approach them again this year about lowering the taxes further to a normal rate because it's still 6 times what everyone else pays. And I don't think that's fair. $300 a year to a new enterprise is a pretty stiff charge off the bat compared to $50, and it's equivalent to what a business in the Roanoke City area pays if they make $5 million in profits, and I'm a tad off from that figure. So I'm going to be taking it to General Assembly. I've missed the filing deadline for this year to get it on their in their process, but I have a network of people that I'm working with that are going to help me take that to Richmond and see if we can't get our 14th Amendment right recognized to be treated equally under the law.
Wow. And I don't think many people of our listeners understand exactly what these laws are, because it's not just here in the Roanoke region or in the state of Virginia. It's all over the United States where I remember when I first started doing readings myself in North Miami Beach, I believe the fee was literally something like $3,000 if I wanted a business license.
Yes, yeah, it was $1,200 here in Roanoke. And I'm proud to say that the Supreme Court of California and Louisiana have made huge strides in equalizing treatment under the law for psychics, mediums, astrologers, etc. In fact, in California, they used to monitor fraud because, of course, that was the fear of the unknown for people that played underneath that unfair and biased legislation. And they found after a few years of monitoring it that the incidence of fraud was so low that it wasn't worth keeping it. And so they ceased to continue to monitor that in California. So I'm happy to say most of us are on the up and up.
Yeah, yeah. And that's not to say, and that's a very good point. It's something we should really talk about on this show is, the fake psychic. I've had people come to me, especially in South Florida. And I'm not going to lump a group of people. I'm not trying to say that this type of psychic is bad or whatnot, but we have a very large Roma community down there. And I've had several people that would go to, quote unquote, gypsy. And they would come to me saying, "Oh, this woman made me give her $2,000 to protect me from this curse, and she keeps asking me for more money, more money." I said, "You know what? Stop giving her money. Stop, because my reading shows nothing of this curse." I'm like, "You're being swindled. You're being swindled." And so it's not to say that there aren't swindlers out there, but I do feel that society has gotten less gullible, I guess. Even though there are those a con artist is a con artist. It doesn't matter whether it's a medium or a psychic, I guess.
Absolutely. And there are branches of our law and judicial system that are designed to take care of that, plus the Better Business Bureau. I think that the way that someone can tell whether or not someone is real or false is how they feel when they leave that reading. If they've left feeling afraid or dependent or more confused than when they went in, they've been to a fraud. That's a lower vibrational energy that's just trying to play on your mind and try to take over to gain for themselves personally. When you leave that person, however, feeling uplifted, calmer, in a state of deeper understanding, feeling more in control of your life, more able to move forward and comforted and counseled, well, then you've been to a good person. And I think that's how you can differentiate false prophet
Yeah.
from the true, real deal there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how it is here in Roanoke. I haven't had much. Well, everyone I know here in Roanoke who does do readings is legitimate, so I haven't seen any of this. But one of the other things that I've noticed in South Florida, where I was living before here, is they do the whole add-on, like, oh well, I'll do a spell for another $100, or
I've heard it too.
I'll light a candle for $500.
That's just ridiculous. Yeah.
Upselling. They keep upselling, and the next thing you know, you leave spending $3,000.
Yeah, it's one thing if it's an entirely different service, like, um, you're in the middle of a reading and your client is interested in having a house clearing done.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes.
entirely different. But yes, using fear and charging high levels of, that don't relate to what's being done, especially like lifting a spell or removing a curse or something like that. That's more about someone learning how to protect themselves and realizing their own personal power than it is something someone can do for you. Not that ritual isn't important, but yeah.
I agree. It is about, and I feel that even within my own readings that I do, and I always say this is not the absolute answer. We can always change it. It's not. You said something about fortune telling earlier, and that's how I kind of see fortune telling, where they say, "Well, this is this, and you're going to get hit by a bus tomorrow," and that
Right.
kind. And it's just laid out. You can't change it. I went. It was very funny. I was in South Florida at a festival. I believe it was like a Latin festival, maybe Calle Ocho, which is a big popular festival down there. And this woman, I was like, just for fun, and I was already doing readings. I was already very proficient at my psychic ability, but just for fun, there was a lady doing readings for $10. I was like, okay, let me get a reading. And she was a palm reader, and she's reading my palm. Mind you, I was there with my boyfriend at the time.
Uh-huh.
And I go to sit down, and she's reading my palm, and she's like, "Oh, you have a beautiful girlfriend, and I see her walking down the aisle. You're going to be married in the spring." I'm like, "You couldn't even tell that I was gay? You are a horrible reader."
Yeah, might have been a little bit off there.
My God, I was like, "Yeah, well, you can keep your candles, you know."
Yeah, right. I do want to add, though, or interject that I do think it is possible to 100% predict something accurately in the future,
Yes, yes.
because some things are written. And also, I ran across an interesting thing. People ask, well, can someone be 100% accurate or not? I don't think so. I think if they are trained and they prioritize, truth and honesty highly, it is absolutely possible. And the thing that gave me hope was I was watching a TED Talk, of all things, on the chicken sexers of Japan. And they are the people that take a baby chick and put it in a bin based on male or female. And as all of us know, it would be pretty hard without microscope and surgery to figure out whether or not it was a male or female chick. And I found their process very interesting, and it's kind of how I approach teaching psychic development to people. They would the professional would stand there, and the newbie would be online, and they would pick up a chick and they would put them in one of the conveyor things. If they were right, the professional would say, "Yes, good job." And if they were wrong, they just remained silent. And I believe it was within 3 or 6 months that people developed 100% accuracy on intuitively knowing whether it was a male or female chick. And so I think that our gifts can be developed, But I think that often a reader will see something that they recognize in the reading, maybe a symbol or get a word or see a color, and they'll jump to a conclusion. They'll say, "Oh, I see green. That's about healing." And so you need some healing. Rather than the nuances that can come along with that. Maybe the person is a healer themselves. It depends on the shade of the color. Maybe it's about prosperity. Maybe it's about growth and deepening the message so that the whole truth and nothing but the truth comes out, which doesn't come if you stay at a superficial level in a reading. So I think sometimes errors that are made or misinterpretations that are made about the symbols that people receive are not necessarily intentional mistakes that people make, but because they maybe didn't reach deep enough for the detail that is available to them if they just took a minute to make sure that that's exactly right.
Right, exactly. And actually that's a very good point to make, that, I know that a lot of readers, especially when you're first starting out, people who are just developing their psychic reading ability, doing readings for friends or for the public, that a lot of times they're very vague, I guess is the word I want to use. And
Yes,
I don't think that that's intentional, but I do know that over time and practice they become a little bit more detailed, like you
absolutely.
said. And you would be surprised that even within that vagueness there is truth. And I mean, a great
Absolutely.
example, I saw this wonderful television program the other day talking about psychic detectives. And the psychic detective was saying, "Oh, well, this woman, some woman was kidnapped, and all the psychic kept seeing was a jagged coastline." He goes, "I see a rocky coastline." Anyway, so they go and they find the girl, but it's nowhere near water. They thought, "Oh, we should go on the coast. We should look on the coast," and it wasn't anywhere near water. But yet, when they opened the windows of this room she was in, there was this billboard of a fish and chip company with a lighthouse and jagged.
Awesome,
And it was like,
awesome.
well, it can't be literal translation sometimes, you know?
Yeah, you have to really reach. And I think, when you and I are talking about developing our gift or developing our intuition or mediumship, it goes back to that continuum where intuition, can be more vague and mediumship very specific, and it has to do with identifying deeper and deeper layers. If your intuition tells you, uh, don't turn here, that's one thing. And then you find out, how did I know that? Uh, and found out that had you turned down there, you would have been mugged. That's wonderful, but it's even more wonderful when you find out that, that was your grandmother, and she had been raped in an alley in the 1920s, and she sensed danger, and she came to your side to keep you from going down that alley. It's more profound and it's deeper. And I find that as I let go of uh, divination tools and leaned more toward connecting with actual spirits, you would think that using tools, and I have nothing against them, and I love to play with them myself, and I do them if people request them, like tarot cards or pendulum or whatever, or stones or whatever they're interested in, I will do that. But as I let go of them as a general practice in my readings and relied on the information that I get from actual spirits around them, it's just amazing, the level of information, which includes the crossing over experience for that particular individual.
That is, well, I love the idea of, well, for me, I would love to see everybody just become their own psychic without tools, you know?
Absolutely. And
And I
it's
feel that's where we're
completely
headed
possible.
as a
Yes.
people. But anyway, okay, we got to take a short break. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
And And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are having a wonderful discussion today with psychic medium Tracey Lockwood. And before the talk, I don't remember what we were talking about before the talk, but I do want to say, Tracey, we have a question as far as, is there someone snoring in the background, or am I right in thinking that's your doggy?
That is my 11-year-old Chorky Daisy, and I've been trying to nudge her, but she's actually purring. She's just like a cat. And I was debating getting up and putting her in the other room because she's sitting here purring. Would you like me to move her?
No, I just wanted to answer everyone's question. They're like, is someone snoring back there?
It's her. I was afraid that you could hear that. I kept trying to nudge her, like, stop. She's just so happy. I think she's enjoying the energy of the show. She's
right on.
Yeah, she grew up with cats, and she purrs, and that's what she's doing. She's actually not asleep. She's actually purring.
Oh, now I hear her. Okay, yes, it does sound like a purr. I get it.
So sorry.
That's funny. Anyway, so Tracey, let's talk a little bit about our topic today, which is the transitioning experience, moving on to the other side. And first of all, I guess the best way to start a discussion like this is we have so many different religions, we have so many different mythologies behind this. We have such a strong linear, logical mentality that nothing exists on the other side with some people. What can we say, or how do you, as a psychic medium, know that there is something beyond what we're living in here and now?
I think that's an excellent question. And yeah, it is actually such a diverse experience. It really does. I would say it's as individual as we are. And there are a lot of beliefs of that. A lot of people think, okay, it's like a tunnel, and then there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're greeted by our loved ones, and or maybe by Jesus or some figure there, Muhammad or Buddha. But it really is absolutely particular, and it has a lot to do with what happens prior to someone's passing and their state of mind when it actually occurs too.
Right. Like if someone went peacefully versus someone who went violently.
Yes, that definitely can affect things. But for instance, someone who's perhaps an atheist who goes peacefully, it's actually quite a shock for them to find out that their life is continuing after they passed. One experience that someone shared with me was someone's father, and he had been very reticent to come to the reading. So when he appeared to me clairvoyantly, he was standing way back. And I said, your father's in spirit? And she said, yes. And I said, he wasn't a very religious person, was he? And she goes, no, he was an atheist. And I said, he probably wouldn't have been very comfortable with this format, with us talking like this. And she goes, oh, absolutely not. But she wanted to know how he was and what had occurred to him. And he was kind enough to share with me his experience. And he actually woke up in kind of, for lack of a better word, a room, although it didn't have any walls in it. And it was sort of like the lights had been dimmed. You know how we dim our lights so that we stay calm, maybe in a hospital setting or whatever.
Meditation.
And meditation, absolutely. And he was sort of floating as if he was reclining. And I asked her, had he passed in bed? And he had. And so he was just sort of suspended in this rectangularly shaped space that was a little dimmer. And as he came to awareness, his first thought just went through him like a shot. It was like, oh my goodness. So as he came to consciousness, he was really struck by the fact, I can, I'm past, I'm dead, but I still have thought. And it absolutely shook him. It went through his entire consciousness. And it really took him a while to adjust. And there was no one around him to bother him or to go, hi, you were wrong, or hi, welcome to heaven. It wasn't anything. It was just this very quiet place that he was allowed to acclimate himself. And once that thought had become comfortable for him, he actually realized, okay, he became aware that there was light, a higher intensity of light around his sort of room there, sort of like on a bright day, you kind of feel that it's sunny outside. You can kind of feel the weather through the walls. And so he heard voices, and another wave of just absolute shock went through him. And he thought, oh my God, there are others. It was really mind-blowing for him. And as his mind settled and he began to get a little curious about what it might be like over there, before he could actually even finish that thought, boom, he was standing in the light. And there was a group of 3 people off to his right, and there was a hamlet. And I'm being particular in the terminology for that because he thought of it as a hamlet rather than a village down to the left. And the road kind of bent enticingly up and over the hill. And this man came over the hill. And I knew it was one of his guides, but he didn't know that. And as that man approached him, he was an older, slender man, bearded, just kind of very humble appearance. He came up to the gentleman that had passed and said, would you like to look around? And he answered, yes, I would. And so he took off and started wandering. And that was the answer that his daughter had needed to just know where he was and what was going on there.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. Tracy, you might need to lower your volume. I think we heard an echo. Okay, we're good.
Here we go. Thank you.
I have a very, how shall we say, a very interesting question, because there are many people, it seems like everyone has had a near-death experience, or at least I'm attracted to people that have near-death experiences.
Yes, it's your vibration because you have a high vibration.
It's
Absolutely,
very
yes.
very interesting. And I myself have had multiple out-of-body experiences. I've been lucky enough to do a shamanic vision quest and have myself had an NDE or 2.
Wow.
And I have to say that within all of those, they're very, very different. Even for the individual, the experiences were very different. And as for me, the individual was very different. So one of the things that I will say that I learned, and that was probably one of the first things that I heard during my first out of body experience, and I believe this is from an NDE I had in my teens, was that we can all see this. We just choose not to see it. That this other world is all around us.
I love that.
And that we as human beings have chosen not to see it. So everyone that we know, that we love, that have passed on or whatever, it's still just there. We just don't see it. And it was funny, about maybe 10 years later, I got into Joseph Campbell, and Joseph Campbell, the mythographer, the big Bill Moyer's Power of Myth dude.
Uh-huh.
And he was quoting Jesus, and he said that Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven is upon the earth, but men choose not to see it. And I was like, oh my God, that's what that voice said to me 10 years ago. You know?
Yes, yes, yes. And I think that that's, do you think it's also part of our sort of our life contract for most of us? Like when we go in, we kind of choose voluntary amnesia to forget who we are and what we've experienced so that we can focus on our material existence and the
Yeah,
experience that it affords us.
absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes I don't know though, because I will say that I was able to see it much clearer as a child, and as I moved in through
Yes.
puberty, it got more difficult, and it was through practicing again that I can see and feel again. But it was very, I don't know, maybe a little bit of both.
No, that's a good point too, and I do believe that we come in much more fully conscious, and then life as it passes tends to bombard us, and we have to focus on using words because that's the way that we transact relationships in the physical world, and we forget our feelings and emotions and abilities. But yeah. Yeah, it is definitely something. But there's also some people experience more of when they leave the planet in the physical to go into the etheric realm and take on the new body that doesn't have the weight of this one, they experience kind of a shock, like this gentleman that we were talking about. But it also occurs for people as they enter this world. Some people have a little bit more of an entry shock. And like all shock, it can freeze things in our mind.
Hmm.
Um, I think one example of that would be people that are affected by a past life uh, injury, perhaps how they passed in that life, and they come in with a physical complaint related to that and can often have that relieved um, as it's taken out. It's almost like they have PTSD from the previous
Oh
life.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
absolutely, absolutely. And as far as now, the popular media always talks about, and I think we got this from Poltergeist, which, by the way, is coming out again. I look forward to seeing it. But I think we got this back in the 80s with Poltergeist. So it was like, all of a sudden, if there was any ghost or if there was any spirit or something, it was like, oh, no, no, they have to go to the light. You got to send them to the light. And I myself have performed that I don't know if you want to call it a
Yes,
ritual, but that service.
sure.
We had a situation where a teenage boy, he was 15 years old, my friend's stepson, had passed away, and he didn't know that he passed away. And he was literally haunting the house and like appearing to his father, and his poor father was grieving, and he's seeing his dead son. And I think what did it for her was that they were a gun family, and he was a shooter, and he had like a gun rack, and he was messing around with the guns. And my friend said, you
Uh,
know what? Now that he's messing around with the guns, he's got to leave. Because
uh,
he might shoot it by mistake, or it might fall, or and who knows? It'd drive his father crazy, I'm sure. But we did the whole transitional, the seance to try to move him into the light, and he went very resistantly, and he did go. But so what is your take on the idea of like you said, let's say I have my mom stopped me from crossing the street at that moment, or or my aunt stopped me from getting on that plane. What about the idea of like, well, should they transition, or are they transitioned already and they just
yeah.
happen to visit, or what is your take on all of that?
Well, I will tell you that people that are stuck, we call them earthbound, or so my term for them are the tweeners. I don't know, that's just what my guides call them, the tweeners, because they're kind of between states, are generally stuck there either out of shock because they transitioned so fast that they weren't able to identify what happened, or by fear. They're afraid of punishment if they go over because of conservative training that they've had, religious training that they've had, or they might be afraid to go over because they're afraid that they won't be able to communicate with the people behind. And of course, there are the predators that hang out there that just don't want to because they'd rather stay here and bug people here. I actually had a past life memory as a ghost that helped me understand this. And what had happened in that was that I had someone here in this world, in the material world, that a physical world that I was very attracted to, but he was married and I wasn't, but I don't cross that line. And we just really got along really well. And I, in a state of meditation, flashed back to a past life where he and I had also had a similar relationship, and we were traveling. It was during the 1940s, and we were traveling together, and we ended up in one of those little strip motel places, you know, like they had like several units next to each other. There was a gravel area outside it, and we went into our little room there and got into bed, and we were making out and kissing and giggling and stuff, and then just at one point we just exploded into laughter because we realized that there was no way that we would ever really be able to have a sexual relationship because we were just friends and we fell asleep. Well, the next thing that I recall, I was trying to talk to people that were in our room and get my stuff. I'm like, where is my stuff? I couldn't find the things that I had brought. And there were two gentlemen in the room, and they were completely ignoring me. And I was actually quite indignant because I was like, I'm talking. Do you not even hear what I'm saying? Why are you ignoring me? And that was frustrating. And then I was outside, and I'm not sure that at the time I was aware that time wasn't continuous, or didn't logically make sense. And I was outside, and there were these children, and they were throwing apples. And I thought, my goodness, what a waste of apples. I could make a pie. And one of the apples had rolled over near my feet, and I reached down to pick it up, and my hand passed through the apple. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm dead. And the second that I realized that I had passed, I flashed back to being in the hotel room and remembered hearing a knock on the door. And I had gotten out of bed, opened the door, and the man's wife was standing there, and she shot me in the face. And as soon as I was able to recall that, I was freed to travel back to a man that I truly loved, that I had left in our hometown. And he was sitting in a library, and he was very sad, and he had a daughter too. And I went to him, and I started talking to him. I said, I would never have cheated on you. I didn't cheat on you. I didn't do it. And I became very emotional about trying to convey that message to him. And I feel like he heard me because a tear rolled down his cheek. And when I felt that the message had gotten through to him, instantly there was this light that opened up, and I felt free to move toward that light. So I think that spirits that are caught have particular things that hold them.
Or fade away.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I am speaking with psychic medium Tracey Lockwood about the crossing over experience, and she has shared a lot of information, a couple stories about some transitioning folks moving over to the other side. And Tracey, I have a very interesting question for you, and I wonder if you heard about this.
Yes.
I believe it's about maybe a little less than a year ago, there was a quantum physicist, I believe. And you know what I love about the work that we do? Eventually, scientists discover it.
They will catch up. They will catch up.
They
Yes.
catch up eventually. But this particular physicist, and I believe we have the article on the GIC somewhere at the Global Illumination Council website. He discovered that we don't die. That, and this is his theory, and I wonder what you think about this.
Okay.
His theory is that we have unlimited dimensional realities, unlimited parallel universes, and that when we die in one universe, our consciousness moves to the other universe. We live in a multiverse. And I spoke with, I believe it was Ann Gale Rose, who studies the Akashic records, and we had discussed something that there is no timeline, that everything is happening right now. So every life, every universe happens right now, according to the Akashic records. But you can move forward and backward, which is, again, a relative term. What is time but something that humans made up? But I was wondering if you've ever saw evidence of this, or what does your gut tell you about this whole multiverse thing? I've always wondered because, and I think I've said this on the air before, so I hope I don't sound too Looney Tunes, that I have past life memories of living on another planet.
Yes.
So what is your thought on this whole hypothesis that the scientist is making, that, is the other realm, the afterlife, not so mysterious? Is it just a parallel universe?
Well, I've a couple of things run through my mind. The first is that definitely when we transition, we are able to be in multiple locations at one time. And I equate it to the dream state where we actually leave our body here and go do things. We either visit people in the etheric realm, assist other people in the planet spiritually, go back and get some learning, whatever. So in that way, I guess we are at least in those dimensions. But I do think that we're multiphasic, multidimensional, and I think that we can travel through those dimensions through meditation, through shamanic journeying, through a variety of modalities here while we're in the body. And as far as connecting with people that are on the other side, that are in what we would call alien, or I prefer to use the term star people.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I grew up with kind of a personal distaste for anything alien other than watching Star Trek. And had a very interesting reading with a woman that she had brought her dogs with her because, she was going to leave them in the car, and I didn't want her to do that. So they were all splayed out, 3 giant dogs in the room. And I'm giving her reading, and all of a sudden, the other dog that's lying by her feet transforms into a Native American man and starts giving a message about that. Their past life together, and so that's almost like another phase. Like,
Yeah.
we think of animals as animals, and us as people, and ne'er the twain shall mix.
Yeah.
But in reality, our souls are morphic, and I've had people come through in readings that. Another one that pops to mind is a gentleman that stood up behind a woman, and he was a 7-foot high black Native American man. And I'm seeing him clairvoyantly. He was absolutely striking. And the first thing that he said to me was, I'm a star person. And I thought, oh, okay.
Wow.
As a medium, I am obligated through ethics to give everything I get, no more, no less. So he starts talking and telling me his grandmother was actually Native American, and she had relations with a star person, and his mother was the offspring of that, and and he was the progeny of that, and he was extremely proud of his star lineage, and he actually gave me his name, his star name, which was Mardavan. And later in the reading, I was drawing a picture, and I felt like I should draw blue sky behind the person's auric burst, and she said, "Oh yes, other mediums have told me that I have a half Native American, half star person guide, and his name is Blue Sky." So that was confirmation for me that I hadn't
Wow.
totally lost my mind. And I have had people come to me that have had some difficult situations with those star people that are not necessarily as nice as some of the others, and had ways to resolve those situations for them. But yes, yeah, an area that a lot of people don't talk about, but it just keeps getting bigger. The stories that I learn from the people that have passed just continue to get the world, the dimensions, the universes just keep
Keep
expanding.
expanding, right?
It's really fantastic, and I'm so thankful to be conscious of it now, and to be in a field that I'm allowed to experience that and explore that as a regular part of my life.
Wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. Now, Tracy, getting back to the name of today's show, the
Yes.
crossing over experience. You said earlier at the beginning of the show that there really is. It's very different for everybody, and I think that most people are. We've all heard the happy stories and whatnot. Have you heard anything, perhaps, or have experienced, or a spirit that might have had a difficult transition? We've
Of
seen it on the
course.
media, people going to hell, or as the Buddhists call the land of the hungry ghosts, or something like that. Is there a possibility to move into a place like that?
I believe that our experience is limited by our state of mind. And what I mean by that is, in the Bible it talks about, and I'm just referring to that because it's a familiar text for many people, not promoting or dispromoting it. But there, seven levels of heaven are mentioned, and in the Jewish tradition, or the Kabbalistic tradition, there are 12 layers to each of those seven layers, which is just more cerebral than I can get. I can't even comprehend that. But what I do know is that if Source, however you perceive that, is perfect light, perfect love, perfect sound, and then because we're three dimensional, we think this way. As you move away from that, there would be gradations of density as you get down into the physical dimension of the earth being the densest, because this is where thoughts become things. This is down and dirty, down on the earth here. There are things, when we're out of body, we have no one can violate our will when we are out of body. But when we are within our body, we can be violated. And so when we're out of body, we kind of go where there's a similar vibration. So if our vibration, our self, is pretty heavy, probably that's the tone that's going to be there. But we're not ever stuck there, because we can always expand. Like the example earlier of the atheist, he didn't get frozen in his little gray box there. He could travel outside of that. I had a really interesting experience, and if you feel like you stepped out of on a testy ground talking about star people, I'll just step out right there with you. When I was in my 20s, Jesus physically manifested in my living room, and I had a conversation and ate with him and talked with him, and it was a very profound experience. And I won't go into great detail right now, other than to say that it occurred. And after that, because I was in a traditional religion and being taught that people were suffering in hell, I wanted to go see hell and maybe help out, you know? So I went with some angels in what we would call a meditation. At the time, I considered it a prayer. And I went to what was the gates of hell, and they looked like big iron gates like you would see maybe outside of a graveyard, and they were just blown all the heck open. Do you know what I mean? Like all cattywampus. And the ground inside of there was completely barren, like compressed, like too many footsteps, just packed down, and there wasn't anyone there. And there were these little black, skittery, shadowy things about, thigh high that were just kind of skittering around in there, but they weren't people. And I was like, it's empty. It wasn't until more recently that again, a biblical verse popped up in my mind, and it was like, Jesus destroyed the gates of hell and set its captives free. And I thought, well, no, duh, then there ain't nobody in hell, but it was so weird to have experienced it. And I have not, I have talked to murderers, pedophiles, people that have done terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things to people, and none of them is being suffered and tortured. But because their vibration is lower, depending on their state of mind, that is what keeps them from rising in awareness or expansion or healing, even to go to some of the higher levels. Anyone that's a higher level can come down in vibration and, communicate with them. But they're limited, sort of like being extra heavy. If you had gravity boots, you could walk on the bottom of the ocean. And then as that weight is taken off, you would naturally start rising. And it's kind of like that. So I haven't ever seen anyone tormented. No, I would say that probably what people think of as the judgment or punishment is probably what I consider our life review process.
Yeah.
And it's not something imposed on us. It's not like your eyelids are propped open and you have to watch it. You actually don't have to watch it or go through that process till you're ready. But when you are ready to sit down and review your life, you re-experience everything that happened to you from the thought of conception to the last half breath as you exhale. And but you do that not just from your own perspective, but you feel and experience your words and actions as if you were the other people. So if you were a pedophile, if you were an abusive alcoholic, if you were someone who was not kind to other people, you will sit in their place. Is that judgment? I don't think so. I think that's because if the universe is all loving and kind, there isn't any punishment, but there is responsibility for our actions. And we are held accountable for our actions, not by a judge and jury, but from what I've witnessed, just the experience of having to be the person that we maybe weren't so nice to. And what that does is it brings an understanding to that soul. And I find it very compassionate in the universe that no one's pointing a finger and telling you you're a terrible person, but that you realize, oh my goodness, I was so selfish. I didn't realize. And I often have people from generations back, sometimes 2 or 3 generations back, but very, very commonly, maybe a grandparent that someone has never met might come through And I call it a generational apology. They say, because I was the way that I was, because I was preoccupied, because I was, selfish and focused on material gain or whatever, my behavior affected your parent in an adverse way. And therefore, their behavior affected you. And I'm sorry for that. And it's really, not everybody has to apologize. Some grandparents are awesome, but some have something to say. And it can come from generations even further back. We were talking earlier about curses and stuff like that. And I've had people come to me asking, is there some kind of family curse? No, not in that sense, because when we're in the physical body, we have the right of occupation. We have the right to occupy our bodies, our minds, our workspaces, our homes, and we have that authority. Using a biblical example again, God gave us dominion over the earth. So metaphysically speaking, we have the right as part of the universe to have our will as a supreme thing, to be able to control what vibration affects us. Obviously, there's some things that happen in the world that we can't control. The will of others, so dense down here in this world, the will of others does affect us. And people are abused, and people are raped, and people are mistreated. But we have so much more power over our own lives and our own energy field and our own psychic ability and awareness than we ever could guess. Sometimes we define ourselves by the experiences we had no control over and don't realize that we have experiences that we have much control over there. And
Absolutely.
sometimes that's what people realize once they've passed. It's really beautiful, the connections. We all are connected. I had an incredibly touching experience in a reading just recently, within probably a couple of weeks of now, where a parent had walked in and she found her 19-year-old son dead. And talk about shock. And she had chosen to come for a reading so that she could understand how he was doing and what happened. And before I even came to the reading, he started talking to me about grandma. And I'm like, okay, was your grandma there? And I don't try to tune in before my reading because my guides know, that I don't like to be bothered until I'm working. Then I'm ready to work. And so I went in and I just asked her as I was sitting down, is your mom in spirit? And she said no. And I said, well, your son was talking about grandmother. We'll find out, what that is as we get into the reading. And he came through in such a physical way. I will say it's probably I try to keep my emotions separate from their emotions because it's important for me to convey that in a neutral way. But he literally wanted to burst out of my chest and hug his mom. And he was trying to reach her. And he said, your grandmother was there when I woke up. And what had happened is he had either a drug interaction or a reaction to a drug, and his respiration had just slowed to the point where he passed. And so in his mind, after he had this kind of gasping, catch his breath thing, he thought he went back to sleep. Well, on the other side, his great-grandmother, who he had never met, heard that he was crossing over, shooed everybody out of the room, told everyone, get out, I'll take care of this. And she was sitting beside the equivalent of his bed and patting his hand and going, and I can't use his name, but I'll just say son, even though it was her great-grandson, son, It's okay. It's okay. Wake up. Wake up. And when he woke, he was like, where am I? And she said, it's okay. She said, I'm your mother's grandmother, and I'm here to help you. And she helped talk him through the shock of passing, so that it wasn't such a tremendous shock. And at the end of the reading, I will share this. There was a song that I kept hearing, and it was that Lilies of the Valley, down it, like lilies of the valley line my garden walk. God bless all of you who had to listen to that, because I'm not singing well today. But, and it was the great grandmother's name was Lily.
Oh.
And she was the one singing it. I said, oh, that's your great grandmother singing it. And the woman confirmed that was Lily was the great grandmother's name. So that was one of the evidences that came through during there. But what a precious way for him to cross over. That is, often when people transition, they're in shock of some type, or if they've had a long illness, they might need to be cared for. I call it in hospital. And they'll be surrounded by these loving, healing energies. To me, they look like some kind of wraiths and angelic beings and sort of spirits that come in beautiful colors like blues and greens and purples and pinks, and then there are these little kind of fluttery bird-like things. And if you could imagine what it would be like to have maybe 6 or 8 or maybe even 12 Reiki masters surrounding you and bombarding you with positive energy, that's sort of the equivalent of what that is. Other people are met by their pets first. I saw one woman transition, and she was walking as if she was an older woman. She was in her 80s when she transitioned. And so she was walking with some, capable, but not really racing around. And off in the distance, she saw her Cocker Spaniel. And that dog started running toward her, and she cried out the name of the dog and started running toward her dog. And as she ran, she morphed from being the age that she had left the earth into this beautiful young woman with dark hair and lovely body, very strong and fit and beautiful, and didn't even realize that she had shed the vestiges of her physical body as she reconnected with her pet. That was actually her first connection on the other side.
Oh, wow. Well, that's nice to hear, especially for me right now.
Yes.
I just wanted to confirm what you said earlier about that whole the life review. I did have an NDE, and I did have to do that, and I will say it was probably the hardest thing I had to do, and coming back, it made me so compassionate and so loving. I grew up.
You are.
I grew up I was raised to be a wasp. Okay, my father is from Spain. My mother's from Cuba. My father was very snobby. They always sent me to private school, and I wasn't allowed to hang out with the poor kids, and God forbid I hung out at the trailer park, which I did all the time to drive them crazy. But but I was a snob, and I was raised.
My, how you've changed.
Yeah, and I was raised to be this really elitist, classist snob, and I was until I had my experience, and I was like. When I came back from that, I was like, oh my God, I was such a horrible person. I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. So it did awaken compassion. And yes, there is a life review. But I will say one of the beautiful things about my experience was that after that life review, that's when I began to float up. And I floated into the, and I hate, it wasn't a white light, it was more of a golden light, but,
Yes, yes, yes. No, I exactly know what you're talking about, the golden
and it was this
light.
golden
Yes,
orb. I
yes,
called it the central
yes,
sun. It was like the central sun, and it was just so
yes.
beautiful there, and everything was so calm, and I didn't want to leave, and I
Yeah.
had to leave and whatnot. But yeah, that whole life review thing is true. I can definitely
Thank you for that.
confirm
I
that.
haven't had that experience in my conscious mind, and I'm so intrigued that occurred for you.
I wonder if I'll
That's
have to do another one. No kidding.
of course, and it's going to be awesome.
It'll be much easier this time, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yes.
But the other thing I want, and we only got a minute on this segment, but I can't help but remember that wonderful movie with Robin Williams, What Dreams May Come. And I thought I was going to hate it when it first came out. I was already involved in metaphysics and paganism and psychicism, and I was like, oh, this is going to be some stupid wishy-washy Robin
Right.
Williams, drama. And I was like, that is the best example I ever saw of explaining what happens when you die. And I'm wondering what you felt. I'm sure many of our listeners have seen it. If you haven't seen it, you got to watch it. But have you seen it, Tracy?
I cannot recall if I have. I think I've seen the preview for it and been
Okay.
intrigued, and I might have it cataloged to watch on my Netflix. So
Oh,
maybe
okay.
that's my viewing tonight.
Oh, you've got to see it.
But
It's perfect.
it is really incredible. The feeling of what you're saying. I wanted to share another story, which was someone's mother, and her daughter was concerned. How are you? What's going on? And her mother just waved her arm open and just said, "Look at my view." And it's almost like she was sitting on a porch because we actually all have etheric homes.
Hmm.
Um, and she was able to look out at sort of a mountain scene. And if you've ever watched the mountains and the way that the clouds mutate the colors as
Yeah,
they
yeah,
pass over the side, it's just like really relaxing to watch, the shade and the light
yeah.
as it comes over the mountains. It did that, but the colors were so amazing. And what was really wild is that the colors had sound. And so it was actually a multi-sensory experience. It wasn't just a matter of seeing the view. And she
Beautiful.
was really, and then she was showing the garden. And
Tracy, you got to hold that thought. There's a
oh, go
commercial
ahead.
coming up, and we'll
Sure.
be right back.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We're having a great conversation today with medium Tracey Lockwood. Before we get Tracy back on, I just want to let you all know that next week we will be continuing our consciousness class series. I'm doing them every third Tuesday of the month here on the Just Bernard Show. And next week, I figured, I am a person who believes that, we should work toward aligning with our higher selves, have the flow and the energy flow naturally through us. But every once in a while, we need to give the universe a little bit of a nudge. And I'm not against it as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. And I'll be talking more about that next week. I'll be doing a live class here on the Just Bernard Show called The Art of Magic and Spellcasting. And it should be a very interesting talk. I will also be doing it live here in the Roanoke Valley for those of you that live in the area at our weekly Earth Spirit gathering that we do at the Roanoke Diversity Center. So there are two chances. You can listen to it live on the radio, or you can come see me present the class live, and that's going to be the Art of Magic and Spellcasting next week at 2 p.m. Also, Tracy, I want to remind everybody where they can find you. What is your new, I know you have a fairly new website. What is the address of your new website?
Thank you. It's mediumtracylockwood.com, and Tracy is spelled Tracey, so it's mediumtracylockwood.com.
Oh, wonderful. And you just started the Mysterium, and I remember you used to do it at the Unitarian Church, and I missed it. But now I have an opportunity to go again because you've started doing it again.
Yes.
And what is the Mysterium for those that are interested in going?
The Mysterium is a spiritual service. We do meditation and grounding exercises. We have a left and a right brain presentation, meaning that we do some. I do a talk called From a Medium's Perspective, and I talk about all kinds of things, totems, angels, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have a presenter that is usually a guest presenter, and that presentation is always interactive, so the people that attend get to have their own experience when they come to the Mysterium. We have had presentations on essential oils. We've done chakral attunement. We've had totem animals and mediumship. We've had a poetry slam, all kinds of fun things, anything that spans the arena of sustainable development, whole foods, or holistic living, the intuitive arts and the creative arts, art, music, dance, theater, etc. You'll find it in the Mysterium.
Oh, that sounds great! Wow. God, I'm almost like maybe you should have a radio show too.
I've been thinking about it. I've been
Oh,
thinking
oh
about it.
my
I
goodness.
might need some tips.
Well, you let me know. I'll nudge our Revolution Radio friends here, see if they would like to have you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
um, Going back to our conversation, and today our conversation is about the crossing over experience. Now,
Yes.
um, I'm just wondering because have you had the opportunity to connect with someone who unfortunately, in today's day and age, many people have long-term illnesses before they
Yes.
pass, and I'm wondering if that creates a different experience, and if
It
you've had
can.
the opportunity to connect with someone who maybe was bedridden for 6 months prior to their passing, and would that make a difference?
Yes, it does. It's not cookie cutter in the sense that it, like all people that have a long illness go through this process, but definitely it's not uncommon to find that they have received care in hospital. But just because they're being ministered by those spiritual energies that we talked about in the last segment, it doesn't mean that they can't communicate. I've never had trouble connecting with any soul. It doesn't matter whether they're living or whether they're in transition or whether they transitioned that day or whether they transitioned 100 years ago. Time is really irrelevant when it comes down to the soul. But I do think that in developing our gifts, as we talked about earlier in the show, it's important to really tune in to the particular vibration and the detail of the vibration. And I think that it's common for people sometimes to miss a soul that's crossed over because, in my opinion, they're looking for them in the wrong place. They might think, okay, they have to come in from the left wing in order for it to be this or that. But I have found that souls can communicate wherever they are, in whatever state they are. And yeah, I'm sorry, I had a brain fart. Tell
It's
me
okay.
if I answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I feel that I don't know, just with my experience over the last week with my own passing of my fur baby. I mean, she was sick and whatnot, and I could already feel her leaving, and it was very easy for me to get used to her not being here. It's almost as if she had almost already begun the transition process, and I'm
I
wondering
think
if that's kind of what happens with people with long-term illness
it
as
can.
well.
It can. People can take time to prepare. My father when he passed, the last visit that I had with him, I had given him a gift, and I had found a particular thing that I knew that he would like, and he held it in his hands and appreciated it for a minute. And he said, "You know what? I'm going to let you keep this for me for a while." And I thought that was so odd. And he had also said, "I'm 65 years old, and I feel like I'm 17, and I can't say that I regret anything I've done in my life." And I thought, wow, I certainly do. So, wow, you know. And as I drove off, I looked in the rearview mirror, and I had the oddest thought. I thought, he thinks he's not going to see me again. And I never took it in my mind to he's going to die or pass. I just thought, oh, he thinks he won't see me again. But I think he knew. And I think sometimes people that are going through a slow passing, they have all kinds of things. Sometimes they feel like it gives them time to reconnect and to make better some of the things that they didn't have. Others are horrifically embarrassed to be a burden or to be seen in the way that they are. The strain on them can cause them to need to be in sort of an intensive care for their minds and their sense of being. Sometimes, other times, people take to it like a duck to water. They're just like, here I am.
Yeah.
Yep, glad to have that over with, So I think it really is very particular to the individual. But yes, some people are aware they're passing. Some people stay in denial while they are.
Right.
Too. And it can bring out people's best characteristics and the worst, both for them and for the people around them.
Oh, yeah.
And create situations where those that are left behind feel like maybe I didn't do enough. And one thing that we don't really think about is that, we suffer our grief and loss and try to understand how to live life without a particular person present. But for many people that cross over, they suffer a grief on the other side because they cannot be physically with us. And so the importance of being able to communicate and connect between the two worlds or dimensions is incredibly important for both sides.
Absolutely. And that brings me, and I hope we have enough time to cover this. It's kind of a big topic, and the whole idea that death is not the end. That this Western idea of fearing death has really gotten stuck in the heart and soul of so many of us. That it's something to be afraid of. It's something to not talk about. Oh no, don't bring death. And our culture is one of the few that really are afraid of death, and the whole transitioning process or the death process. We had Stephen Mailer on a couple of weeks ago, and he said in ancient Egypt they never had the concept of dying. They called it westing. You're just moving to the next level. And I'm wondering how do you see this whole idea of death? Do you fear death? Is it something that we need to fear? Is it something that we should look forward to? I mean, or is it just a part of the natural cycle of our evolving consciousness?
Thank you for that question, an interesting one. I think what I'm often struck by, even though I'm a medium, I do this professionally, it still is like, wow, to think that we do continue. I know that sounds kind of naive or something, but it's just really tremendous. And through the proofs that people bring through, to prove to the people that are left here in this dimension that they are them, which can range from the poignant to the hilarious. it's just amazing that we are really eternal souls. And our view of death, I've caught a few people on the other side looking at it a little differently, almost like baseball cards. Like, you know how you traded baseball cards back in the
Right.
day, or maybe currently, maybe it went to Pokemon. That's about the last I knew that people were trading cards, so that dates me. But anyway,
Magic. Now
um,
it's magic. I
right.
think. I don't know.
Cool, you're on board. You're much cooler than me. But they'll trade stories about how they passed. Like, yeah, I fell out of a plane and my parachute failed to deploy. Ooh, well, that's nothing. I got eaten by an alligator. No way! Yeah, well, you can say that, but I suffered 10 years and 6 months, 2 weeks, and a day with a cancer that ate half my face off. Ew!
Oh, wow.
It's like their view of it, it's just like a vehicle. Death is just a vehicle that takes us from one dimension to the next. And I think that people want to convey that experience to the people that are still left there, like, yo, I'm fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I did commit suicide, or I did get hit by a bus, but I'm still me. I'm fine. And I do find that people don't like to be particularly remembered for the way that they passed, because their lives were so much more than that. And they want people here to be able to release that, so that they're not focused on that end event, which, sometimes, especially if it's dramatic, can color the way that we think of someone, but it can also give us a view of them that they're, a victim or something, and they're still on the other side. That was just how I got over here. Now I'm working on such and such. I'm really doing this now. I used to be that way, but now I'm really seeing things differently. There are all kinds of things that happen when they're freed from their physical state.
Hmm. Hmm. I can't help, and forgive me if this is a corny question, but it just popped in my head, and I have to do it.
Go for it.
Have you ever been in contact with some kind of celebrity? Michael Jackson, Princess Diana? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. You mean in the physical or the
Through the spirit world, did they or
yeah, because if I have in the physical, but I can't disclose that because
Oh,
of
okay.
my clients. But yes, in the spirit world, absolutely. In fact, Marilyn Monroe came through for me. I had just watched a series of her movies, and I really didn't know anything about her. I don't like black and white movies. I really could care less, and
Right.
I just, I didn't really watch a lot of TV anyway or movies anyway. And but I had been curious about her, and she keeps kind of weaving in and out. She's kind of loosely connected to the Mysterium somehow. And so I had watched a set of movies that someone gave me for a gift, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I wasn't really thinking about her or trying to scope out, did you kill yourself or was it a conspiracy? I really didn't go there. But in another meditation a little bit later that week, she came through and she gave me a really profound message. It really was very helpful to me. And because it came from her, because I had just had an encapsulated view of her life, it meant a lot. And it was, don't be afraid to live your life. And I know that that doesn't sound profound to many people, but for me at the time, it was extremely moving. And I think that there is the question of what is our life. And I have another thought that a memory of a reading that I don't know if I should interject here or not. It's about the History Channel.
Oh, well, we have about 5 more minutes, so go for it.
Okay, all right. The History Channel, I was reading for a woman. Her father came through, And she wondered what's going on. This is very common for people to know, what are you doing? Since they can see us, but we can't always see them. And he was explaining that he was watching the History Channel, and he was very ironic in the way that he said that. And so, and he kind of had a funny smile on his face, and she goes, "Oh, he used to love the History Channel." But what he showed me was that there was a library where you could, in essence, check out sort of a DVD of someone else's life. Like perhaps if you had been really fascinated by Joan of Arc, and you knew that she didn't go to battle till she was 14, you could literally become Joan of Arc at like age 13 and a half and experience life as if you were her.
Mm.
And so he was actually enjoying living the lives of some of the historical characters that had fascinated him when he was in this life. And that's just so interesting to me to think, how many ways we are connected in this matrix of life. Sometimes we think, oh, I have a past life memory. I think I was so-and-so because I remember it. But what if it's because you watched it on the History Channel?
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like the Akashic Record DVD library or something.
Yes. Or like you and I were talking about earlier about the life review. What if we experienced that because it was part of our life review and we became the person that we think we were?
Wow, that opens up a whole nother can of worms for me because I have this thing about walk-ins.
Yes.
Walk-in
Yes.
souls and walk-in spirits. And I knew a gentleman. It was very interesting. He was a walk-in from the future, and he extremely wise. Taught me a lot, actually. And then the walk-in left one day, and he was just plain old Gary. And it was like, what
Yes.
happened?
Right. Where's your muse? But, I really think that, as far as the crossing over experience goes, it's so unique. It's just so individual. It's just as individual as we are. There were two brothers. I did a reading for a woman that had lost two sons, both to suicide, bless her heart. And they had such a different experience. The one brother was sort of embracing the opportunity for growth, healing some connections to other people, both in this life and in that dimension that had been broken. The other brother was just really ADHD and could care less about expansion and was just really thrilled with the fact that you could travel at the speed of thought. And he was zip, zap, zip, zip, rushing all over the place. He had no interest in expansion. So it's remarkable. It's really remarkable. It's an amazing thing to think about.
And you made me think now you're making me think about something. What if, here we go, here's a good conundrum for all of us. What if right now we are just doing that DVD thing and this whole lifetime is really happening in 5 minutes?
Whoa.
Whoa, dude. There is no time and space, you know?
But I will have to say that even if that's true, what we experience and our ability to take our life and make our choices and our ability to connect with other people in this world, that's really all we have left.
Absolutely.
When we leave a dimension is our relationships. That's all that really matters.
And that's a beautiful way to end this talk today. Thank you so much, Tracy. That's perfect, perfect. And it's true. I think it's all about the experience. What can we experience? That's why we came here. Even if we did just press play on the DVD, we want to experience, so we might as well make it a good one.
Righto. Righto.
Anyway, let me remind everybody again, Tracy, your website address again.
Medium Tracey Lockwood.com. That's Medium Tracey, Tracey Lockwood, LOCKWOOD.com.
Wonderful. And anybody who's listening can make an appointment with you for a one-on-one session if they wanted to.
Absolutely. Yes, I do sessions by Skype for international clients, by phone for people that are unable to come into my offices, which I do in my offices here in Roanoke for those that are able to come one-on-one.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for listening, everyone. We'll see you again next week. You're listening to the Just Bernard Show. We love you very, very much. Have a great week.